One way in which our newscast fits the convention of radio news is that it's presented in the form of an interview, outside broadcast, and as well as a vox pop.
Interviews are distinctive of radio news as it gives us a sense of realism as we gain real opinions about events and stories and understand what the police officers and offenders think of it. This is done in an objective way, letting the audience decide what they think of Spithoods. It's also relevant to our story on grieving as it allows us to understand what we can do to assist people who are grieving.
Outside broadcasts are typical of radio news as it gives a sense of authenticity and realism. This is furthered by the ambient sounds as they transport the audience to the news scene, making them feel they are actually there witnessing news in the making. This fits with the story on the VFX festival as the audience can hear people at the festival having fun, creating a happy atmosphere for the audience and setting the environment for them.
A vox pop is also typical of radio news. Journalists use this method to capture the voices and opinions of the ordinary person so that listeners can identify with it. This is perfect for our story about thieves on mopeds as it will help us gain a perspective on what young people would think about this issue.
Another way in which our news story follows the codes and conventions of news is that it contains a number of news values. For example, we use human interest in our story on young people grieving. We refer to the psychosocial struggles that young people endure when they lose a loved one. We also use the news value of negativity. For example, our story in Spithoods is negative as someone nearly died after having one used on them.
As well as this, our story on deaths on mopeds is also negative as it features a victim who has had their phone stolen. Bad news is generally found more interesting for people than positive news. There is an expression that bad news is good news for a news team as audiences tend to listen to them more.
We use the convention of the hard news coming first in the news broadcast and the soft news coming last. We thought that this was a convention worth keeping as most important stories have information that the audience need to know and that the information should be given first. Therefore, we started with the crime stories and the tips and advice from the police. However, we ended with the outside broadcast at the VFX festival because it was not vital information. Instead, it was news that the audience may want to know.
Our newscast is conventional of radio news because, as they do on BBC radio stations and other renowned stations, we used music and sound effects to engage our target audience. For example, we used sound effects from Super Mario for the introduction of the news story on the VFX festival. To develop this, we used modern music at the beginning of our newscast, as modern music is more likely to appeal to our young audience and they are more likely to relate to it.
Most newscasts include primary definers in their newscast at some point to inform and advise the audience. We use expert opinions in all our stories, including the police, a school support worker, and a qualified teenage prodigy. Furthermore, normally radio newscasts have formal language and tone when broadcasting from both the anchors and the reporters. We challenge this by using informal tones and languages and developed this by including a few slang words. For example, we started off with "Hey guys" in one of our stories.
Moving on, we challenge conventions by targeting radio news at a young audience. This is a brave thing to do as firstly it's radio and young people tend to want more visual and interactive media, and secondly it's news, which is usually targeted at adults.
One developing convention that we used was audience interactivity, whereby we invite the audience to get involved through social media. For example, in our Spithoods story, at the end we invite the audience to send in their opinions by tweeting us.
Finally, we use music at the back of some of our news stories. This was unconventional for radio news. Doing this keeps our audience alert and it keeps them listening, as having music keeps our target audience excited.